Those who can understand others are clever. Those who can understand themselves are wise. Tao Te Ching. I love making the unconscious conscious within myself, but also within the world. I love understanding how things work and most specifically how our mind and psyche works. Even though my brother would often tell me that I could never understand everything in life, so I just had to give up this quest of truth seeking and soul searching, always needing to understand everything. He said life is simple and complicated at the same time. Just enjoy the simple things. And even though I do agree with him to some point, I would be going against my own nature if I stop asking questions and stop diving into the deep. So to me, learning about the psyche is a passion, and there is no feeling as thrilling and exciting as understanding how our mind works and why we do the things we do. There is this quote by Carl Jung saying, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So I guess it's fair to say that by learning how your mind works, by learning about yourself, you actually empower yourself to make better choices, to have a better understanding, and to not be controlled and governed by your impulses and patterns. So, having shared this, you might already guess that after I finished high school, I chose to study psychology. Fully determined and motivated that I would now find a solution to end mental suffering, I stepped into the field. But it didn't take long for me to feel like something was missing. I didn't find the depth that I was looking for. I didn't find the connection that I was looking for. And I didn't feel like I was getting practical tools that I could use for myself or the people around me. So, feeling kind of disappointed, I decided to take a break during the third years of my studies. And I had always been dancing in my life ever since I was a little girl. I loved performing, I loved dancing. During that time, I was also very active as a dancer in the Netherlands. And during some international events, I had met these amazing dancers from Paris with whom I connected very well and still to this day feel like family to me. And meeting them inspired me to move to Paris and to pursue my dreams in dancing. So that's what I did. I lived there for 3 years, and now looking back on the choices that I've made, and especially how I expressed myself in dance, but also in creativity in general, all of that has taught me so much more about myself, so much more about my coping mechanisms, my hidden patterns, my relationship basically with myself that I could never learn in any studies or course or read in any book. So what might have seemed like a career switch from psychology to dance was actually for me still the same underlying desire to understand and to explore. And I believe that creativity is a very beautiful thing in which we get to learn much about ourselves. We get to see the stories that we are trying to share, but at the same time, we see what we're holding back and what we're afraid of. In my case, what became very obvious was how afraid I was to let myself be seen. So I was, as an underground dancer, participating in these dance battles. I really wanted to show myself, but at the same time, once I was there, all I wanted was to disappear. And outside of the events, I would train my ass off and prepare and make sure I had all the techniques and all the moves and everything that I needed to shine when it was my moment. But then again, the next event would be there and I would enter and again feel like, why am I so afraid to stand here? What is holding me back? It felt like I was stuck in an internal battle between wanting to be seen and wanting to disappear. And this showed itself very clearly in my dance, but this same mechanism, the same pattern, actually played a role in all other areas of my life as well. The desire to be seen and to belong somewhere would be reflected in the relationships I would enter, my friendships, the work that I would do. Every choice I made was driven by this need that hadn't been met inside of me. And of course, I wasn't aware of this along the way. It was only until something would happen in my life that would hurt me or upset me in any way that I would feel this unhealed part of me crying for attention. So back to making the unconscious conscious. When we are not aware of what our unmet needs are because of how we have distanced ourselves from it and from the pain that we feel behind it, we end up finding ourselves in situations where the same unmet need blocks us from moving further. It's like somewhere along our personal development, we have stopped growing in that area, and no matter how hard we try to make something happen, whether it's achieving success in our careers or to find the right relationship, that same unhealed part, the unmet need, keeps bringing us back to the part where our natural growth has stopped. And we feel stuck in a pattern that just keeps repeating. So pain that we haven't healed or hurt that we haven't felt is not something we can just walk away from and forget it ever happened. Life keeps calling us back to pick up where we left off in our mental, emotional, or spiritual development. And no matter how hard we try to ignore or to distract ourselves from it, the pain will not go away. It will only get worse and bigger and clearer until you just can't ignore it anymore. So in my story, as I already mentioned, needing to feel seen has been the one common thread. In Dutch, we would say de rode draad, which literally means the red thread, but I don't think that works in English. But anyway, dancing and participating in dance battles was a way for me to express myself. But in that self-expression, I got blocked because of the wounds that I was carrying of not feeling seen. And that wound would completely interfere with my natural flow of self-expression and creativity of the moment. So I would be standing there on the dance floor, feel the music, see all the people around me, and just feel incapable of surrendering because of a complete inner shutdown of my system. And of course, I would have good days in which somehow magically I would feel calm and connected and be able to do what I wanted to do, which was to express. But more often than not, I would experience a complete internal crisis and not understand what was holding me back and why I just simply couldn't be myself. This internal battle became so frustrating and tiring after a while that I just stopped participating in dance battles. And even though it was partially also because I was ready to lead my life in a different direction, and I felt like I had done everything that I wanted to do in dance, I hadn't yet looked at the reasons of why I was struggling so much. And so leaving that essential reason, the why behind, and not having treated the core problem, it would show up in the next thing I would invest myself in my life, like for example in relationships. I will talk more about relationships in later episodes because I find it really interesting. But for now, what I want to say is that no matter what you do in life, no matter what you invest yourself in, whether it is dancing, studying, working on your business, being in a relationship, you bring the you in all of that. And as tempting as it might seem to distract yourself with the next best thing, if you don't look at what you're struggling with on a deeper level, you end up repeating the pattern. And in my case, it would represent itself in changing hobbies. I would dance. Dance was always the biggest part of my life, but then out of nowhere, I would completely invest myself in photography or in acting classes or in singing classes. I would change the activity and the expression of creativity, but I wouldn't look at what was holding me back on a deeper level. I wanted to be seen because I was too afraid to show myself. I wanted the world to give me permission, to give me space, because I couldn't take up that space myself. And holding back for so long, holding that energy back, that natural flow, eventually led to the body attacking itself from the inside. It became an inflammation, and now they call it Crohn's disease. But I call it a lifetime of staying small, not owning my birthright to exist, and not knowing my self-worth. So making the unconscious conscious is an essential part of healing. By feeling through the pain that we feel, by looking at the patterns that repeat themselves, we can find our way back to our inner needs and meet them before our wounds get infected. My wound got infected so bad that I got really, really sick. 30 years is supposed to be the prime of your life, but for me, it was the hardest year of my life. But at the same time, the most insightful one. Sometimes loss comes from gaining, and sometimes gain comes from losing. I lost a lot during the last year, but I've gained so much more. It feels like today, on my 31st birthday, by the way, I get to redesign my life from scratch. I get to have a new beginning. For 30 years, I've experienced not counting myself in, not taking up my space, not letting myself be seen. This new chapter is going to represent the opposite of all of that. Self-worth. And not because of what you do, who you're with, what people tell you, but simply because of the very essence of your being. Let's remind each other of that. In my podcast, I want to take you through my journey while inviting you to connect to yours. With this passion that I have for psychology and for the depth of the psyche, I want to be of help. And personally, I have experienced in my life that what helps me most is when I get to connect to others, to their stories and to their personal experiences. I believe that one-on-one sessions with a psychologist or a therapist can be very helpful and very valuable. But sometimes we just need to talk and to listen and to exchange as equal human beings. So if you've come this far, I want to thank you for your time and attention. This first episode is kind of like a small introduction, like an announcement of what you might expect in next episodes. If you have any questions or if you want to reach out for whatever reason, you can visit my website liveintruth.net. And for now, I want to wish you a good continuation of your day and sending you much love and light. My name is Atusa Zara, and thank you for listening.